There is a power that most people never discover because they are too busy trying to fill every space with words. They believe that influence comes from speaking. That presence comes from being seen and heard. That strength is demonstrated through expression, and so they talk, they explain, they justify, they defend. They add their voice to every conversation, their opinion to every matter, their commentary to every silence. And in all this speaking, they give away something they do not realize they are losing. They give away their power. Because real power, the kind that moves people and changes rooms and commands respect without demanding it, does not come from words. It comes from the willingness to be silent. Welcome to the quiet path. This is a space where we step back from the constant noise of the world, where we sit with what is uncomfortable, where we remember that true strength is not about being the loudest voice, but about being the most grounded presence. Here, we do not chase after attention or try to prove ourselves through endless expression. We simply recognize that there is a depth available to those who know when to speak and when to be still. And today, we are looking at something that goes against everything the modern world teaches. We are looking at silence. Not as weakness, not as absence, but as a source of power that most people never tap into because they are too afraid to stop talking. You know what it feels like to be around someone who talks constantly, who fills every pause with words, who needs to be heard in every moment. And you know how exhausting it is, how their constant speaking somehow makes them seem smaller, not larger, less substantial, not more. Because when someone cannot be comfortable in silence, when they must always be expressing, explaining, defending, you sense something underneath. You sense that they are running from something, that they are trying to fill a void, that they do not trust their own presence to be enough without the words. And this diminishes them, not because speaking is wrong, but because the inability to be silent reveals insecurity. Now consider the person who speaks rarely but with weight, who can sit in a room and say nothing while others chatter, who listens more than they speak, who chooses their words carefully and uses them sparingly. There is something different about their presence, something solid. When they do speak, people listen, not because they are loud, not because they demand attention, but because their silence has given their words value, because they have not devalued their voice through overuse, because they have learned something that most people never learn, that less can be more. That restraint can be more powerful than expression. That silence, when chosen consciously, is a form of strength. In the old traditions, particularly in Japan, silence was understood as essential. The tea ceremony includes long periods of quiet. The martial arts master does not explain every technique. The calligrapher does not justify each stroke. There is an understanding that some things are communicated better through presence than through words, that some wisdom is transmitted through silence, that the space between words matters as much as the words themselves. And in this understanding, silence becomes not an absence of communication, but a different form of it, a deeper form, one that speaks to something beyond the surface level of language. Most people fear silence. They experience it as uncomfortable, awkward, something that must be filled as quickly as possible. And so they rush to fill it. They make small talk. They ask questions they do not care about. They offer opinions that are not needed. Anything to avoid the discomfort of simply being quiet. But this fear of silence is also a fear of themselves, a fear of being present without distraction, a fear of being seen without the shield of words, a fear that if they stop talking, if they stop performing, they will be revealed as insufficient, as boring, as not enough. And so they keep talking, keep filling the space, keep giving away their power to the fear. But silence does not reveal insufficiency, it reveals the opposite. When you can be silent, when you can sit with another person or stand in a group and not feel compelled to speak, you demonstrate something. You demonstrate that you are comfortable with yourself, that you do not need external validation, that you trust your presence to be enough without constant expression. And people feel this. They sense the groundedness, the self-possession, the quiet confidence that comes from someone who does not need to prove anything. And they respect it, even if they cannot articulate why. They feel that this person has something that most people lack, a kind of inner stability, a centeredness, a power that does not need to announce itself. Think about negotiations, about conflict, about moments of tension. The person who talks the most is often the person with the least power. They are explaining, justifying, trying to convince, and in their effort to persuade through volume of words, they reveal their weakness. They reveal that they need the other person to agree, that they are dependent on the outcome, that they are not grounded enough to simply state their position and then be silent, but the person who can state something clearly and then stop, who can let silence sit after they have spoken, who can wait without filling the space, that person has power. Because they are not attached to convincing, they are simply present with what is true. And that presence is far more persuasive than any amount of additional words could be. Silence also gives you access to information that speakers never receive. When you are talking, you are not listening, you are not observing, you are focused on what you are saying, on how you are being received, on what you will say next. But when you are silent, when you are simply present and attentive, you see things. You notice what others miss. You hear what is actually being said beneath the words. You observe the dynamics in the room. You understand more deeply because you are not distracted by your own expression. And this understanding is power, because you can respond from a place of genuine awareness rather than from habit or assumption. You can act with precision instead of just reacting with volume. There is a teaching about the empty cup. A student comes to a master full of opinions and ideas, and the master begins to pour tea. The cup fills and the master keeps pouring, the tea overflowing onto the table. The student protests, and the master says, "You are like this cup, so full of your own ideas that there is no room for anything new. To learn, you must first empty yourself." This is what silence does. It empties you. It creates space. Space for new information. Space for genuine understanding. Space for wisdom that cannot enter when you are too busy speaking to receive it. And this space, this emptiness, is not weakness. It is the condition for real strength, for real knowledge, for real power. Most people use words to protect themselves, to maintain control, to manage how they are perceived. They explain everything so there is no misunderstanding. They justify their choices so they will not be judged. They fill silence so they will not be seen as having nothing to say. But this is exhausting, and it is ultimately ineffective, because you cannot control how others perceive you through words. You cannot prevent judgment through explanation. And the more you try, the more you reveal that you care too much about what others think. The more you demonstrate that you are not grounded in yourself, that your sense of worth depends on external validation. And this dependence, this need, this is where your power goes, into the futile attempt to control the uncontrollable through endless speaking. But when you can be silent, when you can let others think what they think without needing to correct them, when you can be misunderstood without rushing to explain, you reclaim that power. You demonstrate that your worth is not dependent on others understanding you perfectly, that you are secure enough in yourself to let silence stand, that you do not need every moment to be managed and controlled through words. And paradoxically, this makes people more likely to understand you, more likely to respect you, because they are not being pushed, not being convinced. They are simply experiencing your presence. And that presence, that quiet confidence, speaks far more clearly than any amount of explanation ever could. Silence also preserves your energy. Speaking, especially speaking that comes from insecurity or the need to control, drains you. It takes mental and emotional energy to constantly manage your expression, to monitor what you are saying, to worry about how it is being received. But silence conserves this energy. It allows you to be present without the exhausting work of performance. And this conservation of energy is itself a form of power, because when you are not depleted by constant speaking, you have more available for what actually matters, for clear thinking, for genuine connection, for decisive action. You are not worn down by your own need to be heard. There is also the power of mystery. When you speak constantly, when you share every thought and opinion, you become known, predictable. There is no depth to discover, no mystery to intrigue. But when you are often silent, when you speak only when you have something worth saying, people wonder about you. They want to know what you are thinking. They pay attention when you do speak because they know it will be meaningful. This is not manipulation. This is simply the natural result of restraint, of valuing your words enough to use them sparingly. And this creates a kind of magnetism. People are drawn to those who have depth, who hold something back, who do not give everything away in every moment. Consider the difference between someone who posts every thought on social media and someone who rarely shares anything. The constant poster becomes wallpaper. Their presence is so common that it loses significance. But the person who shares rarely, when they do post something, people notice. They pay attention not because what they share is necessarily more profound, but because its rarity gives it weight. This same principle applies in person. The person who speaks constantly becomes background noise. But the person who is often silent, when they do speak, creates a moment. People lean in. They listen, because they know this person does not waste words, does not speak just to fill space, and so what they say must matter. But this kind of powerful silence is not the silence of fear. It is not staying quiet because you are afraid to speak, not holding back because you doubt yourself. That is not power. That is paralysis. The silence we are speaking of is chosen. It is conscious. It is the silence of someone who could speak but chooses not to, who has something to say but recognizes that saying it would serve no purpose, who is comfortable enough with themselves and secure enough in their worth that they do not need to constantly express. This is the silence of strength, of self-possession, of wisdom. And it is available to anyone who is willing to stop using words as a shield and start experiencing silence as a foundation. The practice is simple. Begin noticing when you speak from habit rather than from genuine need, when you fill silence because it is uncomfortable, when you explain yourself because you fear judgment, when you offer opinions that are not requested, and in those moments, practice stopping. Practice letting the silence remain. Practice trusting that your presence is enough without the words. This will feel uncomfortable at first. The old habit of filling space is strong, but stay with the discomfort. Breathe, be present, and notice what happens. Notice that the silence does not destroy you, that people do not reject you for being quiet, that in fact, they often seem more comfortable, more present, because you are not demanding anything from them. You are simply there, grounded in yourself, and that groundedness creates space for genuine connection in a way that constant talking never can. Over time, you will begin to notice when speaking actually serves a purpose and when it is just noise. You will develop a sense for the weight of words, for the value of silence, and you will speak less but with more impact. People will listen more carefully because they will sense that you do not speak carelessly, that your words are chosen, that your silence is not empty but full of presence, full of awareness, full of the kind of power that does not need to announce itself but is felt by everyone in the room. This does not mean you become withdrawn. It does not mean you stop engaging with people. It means you engage more consciously, more selectively. You speak when you have something worth saying. You ask questions because you genuinely want to understand, not because you want to fill space. You listen more than you talk, and you allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. And in this way of being, you become someone people remember. Someone whose presence has weight. Someone who has discovered that real power is not found in having the most to say, it is found in knowing when to say nothing at all. The world will pressure you to speak more, to share more, to express every thought and feeling, to fill every moment with words. And most people will follow this pressure. They will talk and give away their power without realizing what they are losing. But you do not have to do this. You can choose differently. You can choose silence, not as withdrawal, not as weakness, but as a conscious decision to value depth over volume, to value presence over performance, to value power over approval. And when you make this choice, when you practice this way of being, you will discover what the masters have always known. That silence is not the absence of power. It is one of its deepest sources. And it has been available to you all along, waiting for you to stop talking long enough to claim it. If you found something here that speaks to you, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to The Quiet Path. Not because you need more words to consume, but because this space exists for those who understand that wisdom is often found in what is not said, in the silence between thoughts, in the presence beneath words. And perhaps what helped you see the power in silence today will help someone else tomorrow who has been exhausting themselves through constant expression and needs to remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be quiet. Walk slowly. See clearly. I'll see you again on The Quiet Path.